Alrighty, what is quacking, everybody? A silent voice. I've been sitting on this for a while. I watched the movie, I read the manga, and the events that transpired to me reading the manga was a roller coaster for me. I watched the movie with my friends, and I was into it, but I felt like there was some very key missing things from it, and I was not satisfied with the ending of the movie. And at the end of the manga, after reading the entire manga, the movie does this series an injustice. I'm not talking about animation quality. I'm not talking about voice acting, anything like that. Animation was great. The movie looked pretty, all that stuff. How they told the movie story, though, did this series an injustice. If you only seen a silent voice movie, I encourage you, I implore you to read the manga. And if you don't want to read it, I'm gonna spoil everything. I'm gonna go through the entire synopsis of it, cause the manga is just so good, and you get the ending to the manga is amazing. It is nice. It is beautiful. It does the series more justice, because the movie, at the end of the movie, that's not the rest of it. There's still more after that ending. The ending of the movie, I think, takes place at the end of volume 5 or volume 6. There's still an entire book and chapters after the end of the movie. And I was mauling, because I'm there's no way. So I bought the collector's edition. I bought the entire collector's edition, the box set, and I enjoy, it's a very cool collector's edition. You can get off Amazon. It is nice. I love the book, the art style and everything of the covers. And also the collector's edition comes with her notebook, and reading that note, actually physically holding the notebook and reading through it, it hits you in the feels a little bit. You kind of feel something. I'm ooh, oh God, just having the notebook and, reading through oh, this is my name. Oh, I'm deaf. Oh my God, it just hits you a little bit. But anyways, besides the warm fuzzy feelings that you get, or the sad feelings you get, the entire story of A Silent Voice is a kid who is growing up and bullies a deaf girl. And that is not the entire thing. It goes through him trying to cope with it, through him really trying to grasp his feelings, why he feels a certain way towards her, and, going through his remorse journey when he gets into high school, and him really trying to figure himself out as he's been ostracized for bullying her, when other people also did bully her and encouraged him to do so as well when they were in elementary school. Now, some of the things that the movie does a disservice to the manga. So in the movie, one of the biggest things of her moving schools and stuff is she was cleaning his desk, and he goes in and they start fighting or whatever. And, that makes sense from the movie's perspective or whatever. And then they're oh, she moves schools or whatever. But he sees her cleaning his desk in the manga, and that isn't where she gets shipped away. In the manga, he gets beat up by his ex-friends, and he's bleeding, and she's trying to clean him up. She is literally going, let me wipe the blood off you and help you. And he is just a resentful piece of shit that he just starts pushing her away. And that is the thing that causes them, because they fight in front of everybody. That is why she leaves or whatever, because everybody sees them fighting. It's not just, oh, them two in a classroom. Everybody sees them fighting. And I feel like if the movie showed that would have hit different. That was one of the key moments that really hit different for me, is seeing how much of a piece of shit he was, because she was trying to help him. He just got beat up, and even after he's been bullying her this entire time, after he's been ostracized by his friends, she is still showing compassion for someone who has, bullied her, broken her hearing aids, all these different things, and she just wants to have a friend, and she feels like if she, cares about him, maybe he'll change. And instead, he shows that he sucks, and they fight, and he starts pushing her away and hitting her. That right there, hits. It's man, dude, you suck. He sucks. But the difference also between the movie and the manga is it shows a lot of his internal monologue. You see his immature, dumb attitude that he has in elementary school. You see him be encouraged to do these bad things by his classmates. You see him brushing off the being punished and reprimanded by the teacher. You see him, kind of brush off things with his mom. You see all these different things from him, and him not really understanding what he's doing. He just feels a way and he's acting out upon it, and he's just not getting proper guidance to really, hone it. He's just getting, a lot of acceptance from his peers, and that's what pushes him to bully Nishimiya. And you even see that with key examples where, like, they're asking Nishimiya what kind of nickname she has, and her nickname's Shoko, and they call her Sho, and that's what the main character's mom calls him, Sho. And that, like, kind of, further pushes him being like, no, like, I hate this girl. And he doesn't understand, but he just bullies her because his friends are just, like, encouraging him, basically. And basically, like, the very early ons of the manga really shows a lot more of the bullying and all the different things that the movie doesn't show. And oh my god, does it really highlight more of this series. Like I said, like, this movie just does the entire manga a disservice, because it just feels like something's missing. There's just something missing when you're watching the movie. And then, like, after reading the manga, I definitely see it now. I definitely see everything now that is, like, missing from the movie that's in the manga. And also, one of the biggest things that they don't show in the movie that's in the manga is Nishimiya's mother. How, her family treated her. How her mother, like, put herself and Nishimiya over what the family wanted and cared about, because the family was, belittling Nishimiya's mother for having a deaf daughter and all these different things, and they were blaming her. They were saying how it's her fault that the daughter was born, not being able to hear properly because, she just wasn't a good woman or whatever and stuff like that. And no, that really hits, because they don't see that. You don't see that in the movie. And you see, like, you kind of get an understanding of why her mother is cold and wants certain things for her daughter, why Nishimiya's mom just wants all of these, high heights for her, and how much she's had to put herself through for Nishimiya. And it doesn't excuse her demeanor and why she's so cold, but she does her best because she's been trying since Nishimiya was little. It doesn't excuse her behavior, but it gives more context into the mother's character and what the mother has done for Nishimiya, and isn't just this stone cold bitch who's just like, oh, I don't want you bullied my daughter when you were a kid, I don't want you around her, and all these different things. And then you fast forward when they grow up. Sho has finally, like, come to terms with everything that he's done. He's been ostracized. No one likes him because he bullied the deaf girl. Like, she moved to a different school, but that still carried with him through the rest of elementary and middle school, all the way up into high school. And then he finally went to a different high school. He has no friends. No one knows who he is, but he just still carries this burden and guilt. And he works so much to give his mother money. And the reason why he has to give his mother money is because his mom gave Nishimiya's mother all of the money that it cost for all of the hearing aids that Sho broke. Because he broke so many hearing aids, it cost, like, I think 2 million yen or something like that in the manga. And his mother paid Nishimiya's mom all that money. So Sho worked tirelessly to pay all that money back up and, pay his mom back. And he ripped out a bunch of his calendar and put, this is the day he's going to kill himself. He was like, I'm going to kill myself because I feel all this guilt. I'm a shitty person. He doesn't feel like he can atone, and he just wants to die. And, like, you see that, like, they kind of really do it a little bit more justice. I feel like the movie does it fine, but in the manga you see a lot of it. You just see him going through the motions and, just working towards, hey, this is my last day. Now, while Sho did plan to kill himself, he did wanted to take some other steps into atoning for everything that he's done. And one of his biggest things was making everything up to Nishimiya and apologizing for her. And he was going to kind of use this as validation in a way, or just kind of be like, oh, let's see where this goes. Like, I just want to apologize and just like die. So he meets Nishimiya at her high school, and, you know, he meets up with her and he gives her her old notebook back and apologizes to her in sign language, because he's been learning sign language so he could apologize to her and make up for her. And she's like, why did you know sign language? Like, why do you know sign language? And he's like, oh, I learned it to talk to you. And, you know, they kind of connect in a little bit, like they start talking, and they're at like the little bridge that they always meet up in throughout. Like, the bridge is iconic throughout the rest of the series. And that's when Nishimiya's mother comes up and smacks Shio and like throws Nishimiya's old notebook into the water. And she's like, why do you have this? And you can see the coldness at the beginning. And like I stated earlier with the whole, oh, her mom, you know, you see her mom's backstory. Like, this is her introduction to her mom, you know, as they get older. She's just like a cold hearted woman who's like, no, stay away from my daughter. And, you know, he makes up with Nishimiya, and then he also gets a friend as well. So like a combination of events. You know, he sticks up for a kid who's getting bullied, lets the bully take his bike instead, and the bully takes off with it. And this kid brings Sho's bike back to him. And he kind of develops a friendship, and this friend gets like very weirdly possessive about Shio as well. So Sho's kind of like making connections, and his mom figures out what he's doing because he didn't end up killing himself. He kind of had a combination of events that, you know, prevented him from doing it, basically. And then that's when his mom confronts him and is like, why did you plan on killing yourself? And they kind of have like a moment, and then she accidentally burns the money. And then because he didn't end up killing himself, he's staying around, he's working towards being friends with Nishimi and everything. That's when he starts reconnecting with other friends as well. One of the other elementary school friends that he had is in his class. And, you know, she talks to him and she says, oh, this guy, he thinks you're cool. You should be friends with him as well. And as the series progresses, they reconnect with some old elementary school friends as well. And you get to learn a lot more, and they start forming bonds and everything as the series progresses. Now, one of the biggest plot points that the movie does not cover whatsoever is the main plot, or kind of, at times it seems like a background plot point, but it kind of brings everyone together for the most part as, you know, the group forms, Sho gets more friends, and, you know, the series keeps moving forward, is they want to make a movie for an amateur film festival. That is the whole big overarching plot of the entire series, is they want to make a film for an amateur film festival. The movie does not touch on that whatsoever, and it is absolutely annoying that the film does not touch on that at all. And because of this whole film, like wanting to make an amateur film, it adds a lot more dynamic to the group, because they fight over who's doing what in the film, who's doing this thing. They have different visions. They argue, and that creates drama, and it creates tension throughout the series when they're ever talking about the film and making the film. And all the while, Sho is just trying to, you know, rebuild and kill his old self. He even states that he wants to kill his old self as he, you know, progresses through the entire series. Another huge highlight of this entire series, that the movie, I think, tries to focus more on like the romance that isn't there. Like, the movie is kind of like weird about it, but like the manga does a lot better with it, is like kind of like the weird subtle romance between Nishimiya and Sho. Now, they do the first part fine because she tries to admit that she loves him, and you can see the frustration on her face. You can see her emotions, and she's trying to, you know, she wanted to tell him that she loves him with her voice. No sign language, with her voice. And he just doesn't understand, because obviously she has a hard time speaking. She can't speak properly. So he doesn't understand her. And he gives her a way out, but not intentionally. It's not like he was like, oh, she said she loved me, better give her a way out. He thought she said something else. He thought she said the moon, and she just went, yep, that's my way out. I'm too embarrassed. And, you know, she just takes that way out. But like, you can see, you know, her face, and honestly, like, seeing that, like, there's got to be like some frustration. Like, I could feel like after reading it, like there's some frustration and embarrassment and, you know, putting yourself out there. And the movie does it good, the manga does it good, and just trying to put yourself out there and just feeling that when it's like hard for people to understand you. Now, the reason why I say the movie, you know, kind of does okay with the romance is because there's a whole other chapter and a half after the movie ends. There's like a whole other section. Sho wanted to tell her that he loved her as well, but he didn't. He just completely missed his opportunity. And it's like, oh my God, like they don't really highlight the romance too much. Like the series really isn't about the romance that much, but like, oh my God, do they like kind of run circles a little bit? Like they kind of make you feel like there's something happening. It's kind of like, you know, you see two of your friends hanging out all the time and, you know, they're like kind of flirty because he calls her cute at times and, you know, they talk and hang out all the time and you're kind of like, is there something there? Is there something there? And nothing ever happens. And like, we're just really good friends. No, we're just good friends. No, it's cool. You know, we just tell each other, you know, we love you and just, you know, deep down we just avoid it. But, you know, we're just cool. We're cool like that. And that's what kind of happens in the manga. And it's kind of frustrating, but it's like, oh my God. And it's that high school drama that's just like, oh my God, just like kiss or something. Just like go on a date, please. Now, throughout the entire series, while Sho, you know, there is some kind of underlying romance or whatever, he really wants to just build his relationship with Nishimiya. And one of the people who keeps getting in the way is Uno. Oh my God, she is so annoying. This girl is like, oh, I want him to myself. Like, she's still been holding on to these feelings all throughout high school. It's like, move on. Girl, just move on, pick someone else, because the entire time she tries to step in between Sho redeeming himself. She's not just, you know, stepping in between two people and stopping the relationship. She's stepping in on what he wants to do and redeem himself because he wants to do right by Nishimiya because he bullied her all those years ago. He did her dirty. He did her wrong, and he wants to make up for that and really salvage a relationship and make up and atone for what he did. And he feels like Nishimiya is the path to atonement throughout this series because he really sees her character and how kind she is and stuff like that. But because Uno's always butting in and because there's always a lot of fights and rifts because of making the movie, having budding ideas, and then also like all of their past discretions coming back up in front of everybody, it builds a massive rift between the friend group at one point in the series. And this is what makes Nishimiya just kind of, you know, not, you know, feel like she belongs. And what the manga does beautifully, and I feel like you really have to like kind of, you know, look into it a little bit and like really think about it a little bit harder, is like the manga really doesn't highlight Nishimiya that much as you're going through the story. Like you just kind of see like her external kindness, what she's doing for people, her demeanor, her character just in person. And you never really understand how she feels outside of when she tries to confess her love for Shio and gets embarrassed and stuff. But outside of that, you don't get to see much until towards the end of the manga, because the entire time deep down, she comes to realize that she thinks she's a problem. Because as we're seeing Sho's journey, Sho's like, oh, I'm the problem, I'm the issue, I should die or whatever. And Nishimiya is feeling the exact same way he's feeling, and it's harder for her to understand that she isn't the problem because everyone's fighting around her and no one can communicate properly to her because it's all like in the moment. So she has lack of context. Because at the end of the day, she feels like she's a burden to everybody. She feels like, oh, everyone has to try so hard to communicate with me. It's all my fault. And Uno just reinforces it further in the future when she comes back and lays her hands on Nishimiya when they're on the Ferris wheel together, just always butting in between her and Sho. And because she feels like everyone's fighting, she just feels like it's her fault because she lacks context. And that's why, as we progress through the story, she tries to kill herself. And Sho comes and saves her. Now, after Sho saves her, he ends up falling off while trying to pull her up, so they end up trading places, and Sho ends up in the hospital. And as you progress through the series, you see how everyone's reacting to it. You see Ueno being like, oh, I've always liked Shoya. I could just never get over him. And it's like, get over him, girl. You see everyone trying to come together, but it's still like causing issues. Ueno's blaming Nishimiya, and then they're like, Ueno's like fighting Nishimiya, and then Nishimiya's mom comes up and smacks her, and she's like, get off my daughter. And it's an insane part of the series. But then Sho's mom comes and stops them, and you kind of like see like Nishimiya just like kind of struggling. She like wants to be there. And one thing about the series that, you know, a little side note, is Ueno like locks herself in Shoya's room, and she's just like, no one's allowed in, and I'm just like, is that legal? Is that like, can you do that? Like, is that legal? Like, I think she lets her mom see him, but like his mom's always like busy doing other things too, and like hasn't said anything. And it's just like, I don't know, maybe you should kind of stop like this weird girl from just like locking herself in your son's hospital room, just saying. But all of it just causes a massive rift, and you know, they end up working things out at the end. But like through that entire time, there's a couple chapters before Shoya recovers, where it's just a chapter called Shoko Nishimiya, and it just shows her and how she like sees the world and goes through everything. And that's when we finally get to see how Nishimiya feels the whole time, because this whole time she's had a silent voice. And you can see how she can barely understand people. When you're reading the chapter, like half of the words are like cut out. You can't really understand what people are saying. The words are jumbled. And you see how she sees the world. And what's interesting about this chapter too is the people who do save Shoya are his old friends who used to bully him. And they say, don't tell him. Like, don't tell him. But like, it's hard to, you know, understand pretty much. But you can finally see everything through Nishimiya's eyes, as, you know, her struggles with feeling like she's the problem, where she tries to be positive the whole time, but she just feels like she's a burden. And I feel like that's the big, like one of the, you know, obviously the biggest thing, she has a silent voice. And that's something the movie does not cover whatsoever. It doesn't show Shoya's old friends who bullied him saving him. It doesn't show Nishimiya's entire, you know, inner monologue, how she's felt her entire life. You know, it's just a silent voice. But like, how are you supposed to get that message across if you don't put that in the movie? Like that chapter, Shoko Nishimiya, that chapter 51 of the manga, that one specifically shows why this series is called The Silent Voice, because we finally get to see Shoko's silent voice this whole time. Shoko just has a silent voice the whole time through the series. And then once Shoya finally recovers, he recovers in the middle of the night, and you know, he needs Nishimiya. He's like thinking about her. He's like, Nishimiya, where is she? And she wakes up in the middle of the night. She's like, Shoya, I need him. And it's like this cute, just moment, because for another side note, like dude rips off his hospital stuff and like it's making the beeping noises and he leaves. Like someone would stop you. I'm sorry, like you're getting stopped, but you know, for the sake of the story, you know, he rips off his stuff and he walks out of the hospital to the bridge, and you know, Nishimiya is going to the bridge as well, and he sees her and she sees him, and they embrace each other and they collapse because he's in a weakened state, and they're holding each other. Her arm's also injured as well, as I believe, and they're holding each other, and that right there is such a cute moment. Oh my god, they're just, you know, they're just hugging each other, and like it's just a beautiful moment. Another side note, everyone I was going to call with watching the movie, they were crying. They were crying their eyes out, and not me. I'm hard as steel. I got the cold heart. I have no emotions whatsoever. I did not cry, but you know, I did feel something. I was like, ooh, this is kind of a moment, but you know, I'm not like that. I don't cry. No tears, only pain. Think funny thoughts, think anything else. Don't cry, hard as steel. Anyways, it was just such a cute moment, and like kind of like brings the series together, and it was just such a wholesome moment. And then after that, Shoya recovers, they start working on their amateur film, and they get it sent to the film festival. And the film festival critics hate their movie that they made. Like, the critics absolutely roast them. They're like, this movie sucks. And all of them are pretty defeated together. They all are finally together and they're just defeated. And Shoya's like, it's okay. They just didn't understand our vision. They don't understand our art. And that's when, after that, it's all time for them to go off to college. They all move away. This is the time Shoya wants to tell Nishimi that he loves her, but he just doesn't. And his one friend's like, oh, aren't you gonna tell her? And he's like, oh, I don't know. And he just fumbles the bag completely. And it's just like, bro, please, dude, you had one job. And then after that, Nishimiya, Uno, and another of their friends, they go off to like a different college together. And it's just a nice, wholesome thing. Now, one of the things where the movie ends is the movie originally ends where they're doing a school festival. And they go to the school festival and Shoya's like, oh my God, I have friends. And throughout the entire series, everyone's had X's on their face because he doesn't feel like he can look people in the face. They're not his friends. He's ostracized. Everyone has X's on their faces. And at the end, everyone's X's on their face start to come off. And he's like, oh my God, I feel like, he feels redeemed in a way. And while that's a good moment, that was a garbage ending to the movie, and that's where I wasn't satisfied. And learning that there's a real ending outside of the movie, I read it. I went through the manga and I read it. And the real ending to the manga is a very sweet ending. It is a nice cycle. They're all grown up. They've gone, I don't know if they've like fully gone through college. They don't really explain that. They're just all together at the end. And there's a sign that, says the name of their elementary school. They're all going to an elementary school reunion. And that's where they all meet up. Everyone's filing into the room. They're taking pictures or whatever. And Shoya's having an inner monologue about himself, his life, and Nishimiya. And he talks about how he used to hate her and, they're together or whatever. And he's like, I feel I can do anything, with her and stuff like that. And as they walk in to the thing, he grabs her hand because she's like, oh, you ready to go in? He's like, yeah. He grabs her hand and they walk in together. And if that isn't just I wish there was more romance and stuff. I wish all that stuff. But at the end of the day, that was a nice closure ending. And it was beautiful. As it wraps the story up nicely, because at the beginning, they were at odds. He bullied her. He hated her, everything, all that. And at the end, he redeems himself and, they're finally friends and together. And it is the ending that I wanted from the movie. And it's a good series. But that's been A Silent Voice. If you've liked this breakdown, please subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Peace.